So we're starting today with Kaitlyn, but before we jump in, we're giving everyone a few minutes to join. I'm going to pull a card from my new deck, Moonology, which I'm super excited about this deck. And inside, you probably saw my Instagram inside. It says, attune to the moon and manifest miracles, which today obviously is the winter solstice. So that is the new beginning. And I'm super excited. The shortest day of the year, which is awesome. And we might have little visitors come in because I am traveling with family. So don't be surprised if I have little beings coming in at different times. So he's decorating the door for me. So cute. So thank you for joining. I want to pull a card today before we get started and see like how amazing these cards are. Aren't they gorgeous? Yeah. Okay, so what card? I kind of am a believer, like sometimes I ask questions, but I'm kind of a believer that the right card will fall out. So I always am kind of waiting until the card falls out. I'm like, what card? And there it is. What card do I need to know? This one is be proud of yourself, which I think is going to be very appropriate for our conversation today. Be proud of yourself. Yeah. And I love this because I'll read a little bit out of this, but I think for many of us, we are on a journey, right, Kaitlyn?
Absolutely. All the time. Like life is a journey. We never stop being on our journey until, the end.
Isn't that the truth? So 56. So I know. And it's like, I feel like everything we're doing is like a lesson.
Absolutely. Until we learn the lesson, we're going to keep repeating the lesson and just keep learning until we learn that lesson.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And even in here, it says, this card brings in a steadfast energy, but it clashes with another energy of wanting to be free and control the results. Realizing even though you can manifest your life to great extent, you can't control everything all the time. Karma comes into play, as does our deep down beliefs about ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, which is so perfect that we pulled this card, be proud of yourself, because I feel like even though we are born into different families with different traditions, we very much are our very own person and that we have to live our own lives.
Yeah, our journeys are very individualized. Like they're very much so unique to the person and not to like anybody else but ourselves.
I agree. And I think that sometimes I hear so many people like, I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want to let down my spouse. But at some extent, that might be part of the journey too, is breaking through those relationships in a way that you can be more authentic.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens like that. That's just how it pans out for some people. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes that's actually like the better thing that could happen. It really just depends on like how it is for that person in their life. But it can be very freeing to break from it.
Yeah, and I know we're going to jump into this in detail, but I think it's so interesting because for many of us, our biggest lessons come from our siblings, relationships, the parents that we've chosen. And I think some of us feel so much in need of getting their approval.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the lesson is in standing up for yourself. So I love that. Yeah. So we're going to be starting here in a minute on our conversation, but I really want to say how much I love this deck. I love it. And I'll read a little bit more. I found it at the local bookstore when I was buying some holiday gifts. Yeah. And I've actually reached out to Yasmin. I reached out to her on Instagram and told her that I was going to be using her deck.
Yeah.
So, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Hi, Mary. So the best time to work your magic is when the moon is in Taurus on Friday or during the Venus hour. So you hold this card at the base of your spine and imagine yourself bathing in a column of healing red light. I love that. Show me what I need to take care of myself. I love that. Hi, Mary. How are you? So we're just pulling. Hi. We're just pulling a quick card from my new deck here, Moonology, which I'm super excited about. We have Kaitlyn, and the card we pulled is Be Proud of Yourself, which we think is perfect for what we're going to talk about today, which is family traditions, religion, and spiritual seeking. Great. You're on mute, my love. Oh,
Yes.
there you are. Hi.
Hi.
Meet Kaitlyn.
How are you?
Kaitlyn, this is Mary, and I know many people be watching the recording. So we're going to start. This is our card today for everybody that's just joining. Be proud of yourself. And I love that card. So Kaitlyn, so let me tell you a little bit about Kaitlyn, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But Kaitlyn and I have met serendipitously.
Yeah.
I putting together this new community, Together We Seek. And in doing so, I wanted to bring together women that really were already down their spiritual path, because I feel like so many of us women are out there. We're not necessarily connected, but there is a thread between all of us. And I think for many of us, having a community to come together and speak freely about what's working, what's not, what's inspiring, is something that I personally need. And I imagine for many of you watching, this has been a calling for you too. So I'm super excited to have Kaitlyn Walls here today. She has been a fantastic addition to the synergistic energy we're doing to put this together. So Kaitlyn, I'd love for you to spend a few minutes talking about yourself and what do you do?
Yeah, so hi everybody watching the replay. Hi Mary, nice to see you, nice to meet you. My name is Kaitlyn Walls, as JJ just said, and I'm a virtual assistant by day, but then I also have my own thing that I do, which is content creation and blog writing. And my life's passion and purpose is to be a writer, to share my experience, connect with others, and really just to tell stories that matter. I also consider myself an artist, as I'm working through what that means to me. And really right now in my life, in the space that I'm in, I'm just trying to navigate what exactly that I want out of life and what that looks like. So I'm on the journey to figure it out. And yeah, that's where I am. That's where I am right now.
I love it. And Kaitlyn and I talk every week, multiple times, and she's very much into numerology, tapping, and other spiritual practices, which I, love. So I was like, oh, let's talk. And we were trying to figure out what would make sense. And as the holidays are approaching, we were talking about family, and then we started talking about spiritual seeking. I think, Kaitlyn, you're like, let's talk about what it takes to really seek when you're inside family traditions that might be holding you back. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and why this is an interesting topic to you.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I'm from Maryland and I went to school in PG County. And from literally ages 3 years old to 17 years old, I've been in private Christian educations. So all of my life, I was up around and brought up around like Christianity, around Christ, around the church, around God. So a lot of that centered around Thursdays. Every single Thursday, we would have chapel. Every single Sundays, there would be Sunday school. There would be Sunday school for like the kids, and then like the church ceremonies or the church services and whatnot. So my upbringing was really a lot of that. And then I think at around age 11, I stopped going to church at some point, but I still had the church in school. So I was really in church all the time. And then through my education at school, it was also very Christian centered. So whatever we learned, it was centered around religion. So we would learn about psychology, but psychology for Christians. We would learn about the Bible. There was Bible class. There was just a lot of different elements of religion that played a part into my upbringing from 3 to 17 years old. So the first time I really didn't have that setting was 18 when I went to college. So that's a little bit about my upbringing. And I grew up with my mom and my dad, and my mom being Christian and my dad's being atheist. So I feel like it's also like kind of interesting to see two different parents of two different religions or non-religions come together and have their children who were raised Christian pretty much.
Yes. And I think there's so many spiritual people that I meet, so many people that have aspirations or insights or wisdom. And most of them have some sort of feeling right away of how their family is going to accept it or acknowledge it or overlook it. So, how did that come into play for you?
In terms of them accepting or acknowledging?
Yeah. Like when you were thinking like, how did you think some of your current practices were going to align with your family traditions and your religion?
I didn't think they would align. And I think that's part of the reason why I am not 100% open to talking to my family about it, because a lot of them, besides like my immediate family, my extended family as well, they're also Christian. So I feel like a lot of times I don't really say things, and I don't think it's necessarily me keeping quiet or me keeping the peace. I think it's more so that I don't think that they're ready to have that conversation. I don't think that they would necessarily understand why I would go against the family religion or the family tradition rather. So I think it doesn't really align, but at the same time, I keep the practices that I do practice very much so closer to Christianity, and I haven't really branched off as much as I would like, because I still have some of that religious upbringing in the back of my mind. And I still have some of those different topics and things that I learned about in the back that I might be a little bit afraid to venture off into things that I want to try, just because, one, out of fear, if I do get into some practice that they may not like, what that's going to look like for me, what that judgment's going to be like, or how I'm going to hear that. So I feel like, I don't know, I think there's still a lot of fear centered around exactly why I haven't dove further into my spiritual journey as I would have liked to so far.
That's so interesting. I've been probably like many of you exploring documentaries on different platforms. And I don't know what documentary I stumbled across, but I was surprised to learn that they used the cycles of the sun to set up Easter, which I didn't know that, because you wonder why Easter changes. It's not a set date. It's
Yeah.
actually on the cycles of the sun. And most European churches or old churches, the way the roof is or the way the roof is structured is it keeps track of the pace of, I think it's the sun. And that's how they determine when Good Friday is and when Easter. And so you may know that. I actually didn't know that, but I hadn't heard much about that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I do think that a lot of religions and spiritualities overlap. I think some people may not know that if they don't necessarily look into it, or if they're not open to understanding how they may overlap. But I think there are a lot of different parallels from each different religion, spirituality, or whatever you may call it, that essentially bring together this entire thing, because that's something different. And then also the church is something different. And so I just feel like there's just a lot of parallels that are there, a lot of connections that can be drawn, and a lot of things I feel like come from different things. I feel like they're variations, if that
Yes,
makes sense.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I just misspoke, so I want to correct myself. So Easter is an observation of the Sunday after the full moon, which happens when the full moon and the spring equinox occur on the same day. So like that was a question. What happens when it happens on the same day? What to do? But it actually not the sun, it's the moon. They follow the cycle of the moon to determine Easter, which I thought is so interesting. What I also thought was interesting when I visited Sedona, and I've been there several times now, there is, almost every spiritual or energy practitioner or light worker that I visit with has statues of angels, has statues of saints, has God, has Jesus. So, do you feel in your experience that the people that you've met or the experience that you have that God is not present in your work?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, sure. Do you feel like God is present in your spiritual seeking?
I do. And sometimes I feel like it's hard to say that, because I'm not sure if I genuinely feel that way, or if it's because I was raised to believe that God exists. So sometimes I'm not sure. And I do intertwine or interchange God, the universe, source, the creator. I use them all the same, because I feel like they're all of the same type of being, the same type of spiritual being, like the higher power and whatnot. And I want to say God is at the center of the things, but it's just hard for me to decipher whether or not that's my own opinion, or if that's something that I was brought with me from my like religious upbringing.
I have to say, I've been there too. I had a lot of personal seeking. I'm at the point now where I believe what, like you said, is people call it God, higher being, the universe, one. I choose to call it God. But whatever someone chooses to call, it's fine with them. But that we are all part of that light down here, helping humans and helping everyone go on their journey. And I think sometimes, and maybe, other times in the world, people were made to believe that that's separate from religion or belief or a higher belief. But I do believe there's some synergistics and alignment with a higher purpose.
I definitely agree with you. I think it just looks different for everyone, but ultimately I feel that whatever we call it, I feel like it all kind of leads back to the same thing. Like all the different roads lead to one path. I think one final destination is how I look at it.
Yeah. And when you think of it that way, I don't know. Sometimes I'm afraid to speak about stuff that I believe in too, to people that I feel are very much very religious, because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I do believe that what I talk about is part of God and God's mission. So it's funny, because I feel like sometimes I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely understand like that fear around not wanting to disrespect somebody, or not wanting to have a misunderstanding about something if they don't necessarily understand that. Because I've been there and I've had that experiences, not really with family, as I said before, I wasn't really open, but with friends, I feel like I kind of had that experience where they might misinterpret something that I said, and then it kind of turns into that muddy waters of is this like what she meant? Is this what she said? And it kind of turns into potential disrespect because they're not sure what I'm saying and I'm not sure what they're saying. So everybody's on different pages and not understanding the other person.
So let's dive a little bit into when you said, and feel free if Mary or Sonal, you want to jump in and ask specific questions, feel free to jump in. So when you say sometimes like your family practices and your religion may be potentially holding you back from further exploration, do
Right.
you feel, and you're much younger than I am. I mean, you just graduated from Howard just a few years ago.
Yeah.
I'm close to 50. So I feel like you kind of grow out of some of the fear because you're like, ah, what do I have to lose? I'm going to die soon. So whatever. But I think that when you say it like holds you back and you're afraid you might get too far in where people might be upset with you,
Mhm.
do you feel like you were told not to explore it, or is it sort of just like the underpinning of your family traditions that you're like, ooh, I just don't want to?
I feel like it's both. Like I feel like I grew up Southern Baptist, if anybody's familiar with that. And in that you're not supposed to ask questions. Like you're not supposed to explore, you're not supposed to learn more. You're not supposed to go outside what exactly that they teach you. You're supposed to just take for whatever it is as fact and go with that. So there was really no chance to explore. And then since I was in that upbringing from ages 3 to 17, I really didn't have time until I was out of it to really step outside and then really be like, okay, now I can breathe. Now I can look at things differently. So I feel like in part it was the exploration was not encouraged by anybody, with whether that be like a teacher, the pastor, whoever I grew up with, and then also with traditions within the family, that's also not talked about as well. It's pretty much like this is how we were raised, this is what we do, this is what we're going to do. So it really is, there was really no time until I was able to be on my own in college to really like discover, okay, what is it that I want to do? But it's not encouraged because they just want you to go with exactly what they're saying. They want you to believe that, and at least in my experience, and that's what I believed for a really long time. But even at a young age, I still felt like I was believing in it because I had to be a part of it. So I feel like I was like saving face to say, because I feel like I had to. I felt like there was no other choice for me because that was my upbringing. That was what I was surrounded by. And I didn't want to disappoint anybody or offend anybody. So I feel like I kept playing pretend for a long time about my beliefs until I was, I guess, 18 or 19 when I started my spiritual journey.
And how did you know to seek that? Like what? Because I feel like some people come to me and be like, I don't know. Sometimes I get these ideas. Like, how did it manifest for you? What really kind of pushed you to explore?
Yeah. So in my upbringing, I went to the same school, just a clarification, from middle school to high school. It was the exact same school, but there were different like principals for each school. But I say all of that to say there were different things that you could and couldn't do. And I could see how certain groups of people that didn't fit within the standard that they had, I could see how they would be ostracized and how they would have punishment and things would happen to them and they would be expelled from the school or suspended. And so from seeing that, I just always felt at a young age that that's not right, that it was more so like a forced to believe one thing and everybody believes in the exact same thing. So I just felt seeing those people be ostracized and seeing them be expelled, some friends, some people I knew around, I didn't think it was right. And I just didn't understand why everybody just felt that this one thing was wrong, and I just didn't see any diversity in thought from that. So I just felt like, I don't know, people were being punished for things they believed, feelings they had, questions they wanted to ask, experiences they want to live, and it just didn't make sense to me at a young age. I didn't know how to actually say that that doesn't make sense, or I didn't know how to say like, I'm not understanding why this is happening. I just always felt like, why is this happening? And I said, how can I be a part of something that's going to punish other people for something that's different? Because we're all human and each of our experiences are different and we're all individuals and our experiences are going to be unique to ourselves. So that was really like, I would say, the seed that was planted. And then I had a friend who went to the same schools, and me and her were 11 years old talking about these things like, okay, if we were born into Christianity, if we weren't born into it, sorry, would we still want that to be our religion? We would always ask that question. And only she would talk to me about this, and only I would talk to her about that. But it's something we really kept to ourselves because we grew up in the same kind of setting. So we were very afraid to like have these conversations with other people outside of ourselves because of the fear of what that might look like for other people to hear our conversations.
That's so interesting because my daughter is a little bit older than that, but she questions the same thing. If I was born
Yeah.
somewhere else and this was my family, would this be the right thing? And so I feel like there's more questioning than there used to be, and
Yeah.
especially among women. I feel like women right now are really starting to say, okay, does this make sense? Does this align? So what was it like? What was your tickle? What was kind of pushing you to
Yeah.
seek a spiritual practice outside of like, hey, I'm not sure, I don't totally agree with this, but was there something that was like yearning inside you that you're like, I have to explore this?
Yeah, so when I went to Howard sophomore year of college. I went somewhere else my first year and I transferred, and I took a African American studies course, and they talked about like a lot of different African spirituality and practices. And I had never heard of that before. I had no idea what it was, but even just hearing about it opened up my eyes to the possibilities of what else might be out there. So
Right.
hearing about all these different things that other people believed in, I was meeting people from all walks of life who weren't Christian. I was like, okay, so all these people believe in this, you believe in that. And I was just like, why can't I believe in what I want to believe in if these people do too? So it was really just being around people that had different thoughts than me, being around people of different religions, different ethnicities, different races, different upbringings, that allowed me to really have that courage to go within and say, okay, well, what is it that I want to know and what do I want to study? But I feel like it was really being in the right place at the right time, serendipitous, as you said earlier. Like, I feel like it was being around those people and being exposed to different things that allow me to even know, like, hey, one, it's out there, two, you can explore, and three, why not try it? So I feel like Howard and starting their sophomore year really kickstarted my journey into learning about all these different things that I had no idea existed before.
Well, it won't be a surprise to anybody listening right now, or maybe some people on the recording, but I really think that your life is orchestrated very particularly, your intersections, the people you surround yourself with, the people that you choose to spend your life as your lessons. And they really are here to teach you, because I think when we come down on the planet, we are here to learn. As Eckhart Tolle and Oprah always talk about school, Earth is like the life school.
Yeah.
And, just thinking about where you came from at 11 years old, when you're asking that, it's because you have wisdom probably that you didn't pick up
Yeah.
here. Maybe you picked up in some other place or before you got here, that you already questioned, like, why is this so? And then you move to a situation where you see all of these things.
Mhm.
So now you finish Howard and you're like, okay, now what do you do with that?
Yeah. Is that your question?
Maybe. I don't know. You
Okay.
tell me. You tell me if it resonates.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense because I felt like those 3.5 years were my time to explore. And I do feel like I've tried a lot of different things. Things that I find are that I personally think are surface level. I think I could definitely go deeper. But I felt like in that experience, I was able to find a lot of different things like crystals and journaling and visualization and even being introduced to African spirituality. But I think it was after I graduated that I started to learn more. So I am always like on the internet. I love my laptop. I take it everywhere. So if I'm just like on Instagram or I stumbled across something and I see somebody talking about a practice they believe in, I'll look into it and I'll research it and I'll study it. And I'm saying, okay, what is this? Is this something that resonates with me? Or is this something that I need to leave alone right now? Or is this something I need to leave alone permanently? So I just go down rabbit holes of different things that I learn because I follow quite a few like energy healers or light workers or spiritual people, and I'm just so curious and fascinated about what people do to self-soothe, to self-heal, and really just to bring back to themselves, to get back to who they are at their authentic core. So it really is just me researching now. And even now, like what you mentioned, the EFT tapping, I found out about that from somebody on Instagram who was saying they did that every morning. And I was just like, what does EFT stand for? So it's really just like pure curiosity that allows me to seek out different practices. And then sometimes they resonate with me and sometimes they don't. So where I am now after graduation of almost 4 years ago, I'm really still exploring what it looks like to me. I have like the basis, like I know for me personally, journaling helps me a lot because I love to write. And I feel like once I can get it out my mind, I can process it. But then these other things also come up, and I just continue to add those to different things that I do as well.
Yes, yes. Well, I love it. And I love talking about this more freely because
Yeah.
and even when I was writing this summary, like almost every spiritual seeker that I have encountered has some sort of level of guilt,
Yeah.
They feel like sometimes they have to hide what they're doing. Sometimes they don't want to talk about it because the people in their family are like, oh, she's one of those,
Yeah.
or she's crazy. But I also think there is some history from centuries past too, that, I personally, and I'm a little biased, I'm going to admit it, but I feel like women are the wisdom of the world, and that we have the ability to tap into Mother Nature from below and also from God above. And it creates such wisdom in our souls that at this point in life, we need more of that. And the wind is blowing. So we need more of that to illuminate the planet. And I feel like that's one of the reasons I want to bring all the women, all the light workers that I can find and reach together, because I feel like it is a lonely path at times.
I definitely agree. I think it's a lonely path online. I also think it's a lonely path in person because when I look at my friend group, even though I have these friends that I made from Howard, some of them still have their own practices. And then the friends from high school, we have different beliefs as well. So I just feel like sometimes it is hard to find my circle with people who understand what I'm talking about and who aren't going to be offended or feel some type of way about me speaking about my religious upbringing. Because to some people, if you still believe in that, it could look offensive if I'm talking about it, even though my standpoint is just sharing my experience and not to judge the religion itself, but just from how I grew up. So I feel like it is hard to find those people that understand, people that are open minded, and people that actually want to listen and learn what you have to say. Because again, I do think that sometimes it's like playing telephone. They may hear one thing, but then it gets translated a different way. And it's like, that's not what you meant. But then again, it's intent versus impacts. Even if you meant well in saying it, the impact of it could be so much greater.
I love it. And feel free, Mary, and anyone else who's on the phone that wants to ask a question, you can either unmute or tap in the chat, either way. But there is a place. The other thing I try to teach my children too is there is a place for religion too. And I feel like, religion helps us in so many ways with our moral compass and aligning to a more impactful life. And if you do that every single day, either through your religion or on your own or both, it really helps elevate sort of your frequency and energy pattern. And the more spiritual work I do, I really do believe in karma.
Yeah.
And, that guides me every day, but that is also, part of many of the religious teachings too. And so I think there is benefit of figuring out what your combination is. But I do agree in a lot of ways is there's a lot of fear and guilt sometimes that comes from family members that are trying to help you get on the right path, not realizing that you are on your path and your path may be more enlightened or more just look different than what they're
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah, I definitely think there's fear and guilt. And for me, there's definitely that. I'd say it definitely does exist. I'm sorry if you can hear like a loud truck back there, but it definitely does exist because sometimes in the back of my mind, I'll think of something, then I'll go back to like that religious upbringing. I'll go back to a certain family religion or a certain family tradition. I'll literally go back to that exact moment. And then I'll have to like, I guess, like check in with myself and say, like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Is this what I believe, or is this what I believe because I'm in this environment? Like, am I more so adapting to the family that I'm around, or am I more so adapting to who I am as a person? So I definitely feel like the fear is there. It's like an underlying thing in the back of my mind, and it's always present. It's just something that I have to check in with and like make sure that I'm okay and make sure that I'm not coming from a place of fear, because I wouldn't want to do that when I'm going within myself or even when I'm talking to other people.
Mm, that is a great reminder for all of us is check into the stories we have in our
Yeah.
heads. So when you go to do something and you feel that fear, or I shouldn't be doing this, or who am I, or oh my gosh, you can feel the guilt like rising sometimes. Why is that happening? Why is that
Yeah.
happening? And where is that story coming from? What is the source? And is that source valid and relevant to where I am in my life now?
Yeah. It's almost like
Mhm.
a little survey you have to go through, like a 3 questionnaire just to make sure that you're listening to you and you're not letting outside voices impact how you feel or that your beliefs, you know what I mean? Like it's like an internal knowing that you need to check in and to really understand exactly where you're coming from with the fear.
That's a beautiful thing, an internal knowing. Yeah, and I really believe frequencies attract. So the women that are in this group and listen to this, they're at a frequency level that is different maybe, but we
Yeah.
all, all the practitioners that I'm inviting to this group, I have personally visited many of them myself, and all of their hearts are so pure because they've done the work. They're working through their journey and they all believe, there many of them are very much tied to that higher being concept, that God,
Yeah.
that love. And I really do think that is what we are striving for inside and outside of religion, is feel part and being like a missioner of God to do his work down here on the planet.
Yeah, and the something you just said that really resonated with me is doing the work. Like, I think sometimes people may forget that there is work involved in figuring out not only your life, your journey, and I don't know if you ever really figure it out because it's ongoing. So I feel like honestly, there's a lot of work that goes into figuring out who you are and like stripping away, as Donna mentioned last week, the getting to like the bare of exactly who you are at your authentic core. I think there's so much to be said about that because once you take that away, it's like, who are you? So there is a lot of inner work, there's a lot of shadow work, there's a lot of mental work, there's a lot of unlearning and relearning and reprogramming and unprogramming. It's just a lot that goes into being a human, number one, and then also being a spiritual being and being somebody that's on their spiritual seeking journey. It's not easy work, and sometimes it's not always beautiful, but there is a lot of work that goes into just figuring it out and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. It takes courage, but it really have to start with like doing the work and going within.
Well, that are several quote cards there, Kaitlyn. You like nailed it. And I think for many of us, like, we are doing the work. We are doing the work. And it's hard when you're doing the work to feel like you can't fit in, or you're being judged, or it's not working. And
Yeah.
so what have you learned? Like, what are some of your tactics or things you've learned at this point of how you do the work, but still feel like, you can go home for family dinners?
Yeah, that's a good point. So for me, I remind myself that I'm on my individual journey and that my journey is unique. We can have many parallels of other people. Some of us in this Zoom room could have many parallels, but each individual journey is still going to be unique whether or not you have the parallels. It's your own. So I tell myself that I'm on my own path and that's okay. I also use a lot of affirmations just to tell myself like, you're on the right path, you're exactly where you need to be. Keep going. So I think it's affirmations, journaling, just getting out my thoughts, getting out how I feel, and really understanding. I think what I'm trying to say is getting understanding of who I am and still knowing who I am and knowing that I can still be that person with family around or be that person without family or even be myself. So it's really just words of affirmation. My love language is also words of affirmation. So I feel like it's just reaffirming myself that it's okay. I'm on my own path. It's okay. Other people are on their own path. And then really understanding that people are just people and people have their biases and people believe what they believe, and me just having to know that we're all human, we're all trying to figure it out, and it's I try not to take it personal is what I would tell myself, because yeah, I don't know, we're all on different journeys and not everybody's meant to understand your journey and everybody's meant to understand your purpose, and that's okay. So I really just self-soothe and say, hey, it's okay, you're on the right path, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Yes, they may have their judgments, but at the same time, you know why you're here. So kind of just like a, I guess, bring myself back to center and say, okay, well, this is why we're here. Just like a really good reminder every single time.
That is beautiful. And I'm going to go back to the card that we pulled, because it's funny. I pulled a card last week and it was right on the money, and it fell out of this week. So today's card was be proud of yourself. Be proud of
Mm.
yourself. And I think, to me, it's like God created us. He put us here on purpose. And
Yeah.
our journey is the journey that we said we would do down here in light of his higher being and higher mission. And I feel like it's hard because humans try to weigh in and all that, and it really does come down to aligning to your life's work and your soul's mission, which was set by God. So
Yeah.
that's what I believe, and that may go against what a lot of people that are listening believe, but I feel like it is part of this bigger light, this bigger universe. And I feel like the women are being, a small subset of the women are being called to do this more now than ever.
Yeah.
And I think this is an important conversation, because I've never heard anyone really talk about how difficult it is to go against the grain.
Hmm. It is very difficult. And I think people are afraid to talk about it still. But I do think in 2021, I feel like there's a lot of room for exploration. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot more people, especially in the digital age, question things, which I love because that's why we're all human. We're all different because we have our ability to think how we want and feel how we want. So I think it's a beautiful time now that people are actually understanding who they are and people are understanding if this religion resonates with them, if this spiritual practice resonates with them. I think it's just a beautiful time for people to really get to who they are without the judgment that I feel like, or less harsh judgment that I feel like would have taken place maybe back then. just because there are a lot of resources, a lot of information at our fingertips, and there's just a lot of different ways to get information across. So I do think I just agree exactly with what you just said about how we're all here for a spiritual reason, we're all here for our own purpose, higher being, and we're just called to do whatever it is that we're called to do.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think I just appreciate you joining us here because I feel like
Yeah.
this is a topic that so many need to hear because they're at the point now where like, should I go a little bit deeper? Should I check more things out? Or should I pull back uh, because that's what I was taught to do?
Yeah. Yeah, because it definitely takes courage to step outside of something different because it's unfamiliar. It's like, whoa, what the heck am I doing? How are people going to feel? I think a lot runs through people's mind when they're trying to go against the grain because there's all these questions that come up like, is this okay? Like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to get judged for this? But it's just like, I think the most important thing that I personally need to remember that maybe others need to hear as well is that it's okay to go outside against the grain. That's why there is an inside. That's why there is an outside. There's a middle. There's different parts for a reason. So I think it's 100% okay to do it as long as you're staying true to who you are and as long as you're focused on your individual journey. Then I think it's 100% okay if you're doing it for all the right and authentic reasons.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing to really circle back on is that it is an individual journey. We know our calling from the inside. It appears to us many times. And even if we feel like we're not ready or it's not the right thing to do based on our upbringing, if it keeps appearing, eventually we hope you will explore it.
Yeah. We definitely receive nudges from the universe probably every single day. Something that, oh, that popped into my mind randomly. It's not random. It popped into your mind for a reason and it will keep popping until you acknowledge it, until you explore it, and until you go with it. But it's going to keep nudging you. Things nudged me 2 years ago that I'm now today, this year, being like, oh, yeah, I forgot. That was a nudge I had 2 years ago that I'm now getting to because I forgot and because I didn't explore it right then and there. Of course, I believe there's divine timing, but I think it just continues to happen until it's like guidance, like little nudges are guidance to get you exactly where it is you need to be.
That is beautiful. Well, as we're rounding out, if you have any words that you want to share, we'd love to hear it. But I think for many, including me, I think this just again reassures all of us that we know, we know, we know. And even if it goes against our family traditions and our religion, there's a way to do it respectfully, but also independently, that we can explore and check it out and find people that we have safe havens, whether it's when you're 11 or when you're 49, which I'm going to be next month. You have safe havens. You have safe havens to connect and explore together. And that none of this is on accident, that you are being guided to do so. And as my friend Mary has said, those calls, those nudges, those angel wing moments.
Absolutely. I love that term. That's exactly what it is.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So with that, Kaitlyn, if you have anything else, where can people find you?
It's definitely in the Together We Seek community. I am there. I will always be there. And online, I'm still not really online right now. So I will definitely let you know so we can put that into like the replay and whatnot.
That's fantastic. And everyone who's joining live or the recording, I really appreciate you sharing this time with us. And I look forward to many more authentic conversations as we all continue to shine our light brighter. So thank you very much. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Happy holidays. Thank you for listening.
So wonderful. Have a great week and we'll be back online.
Yes.